The vinyl seat of my old pickup creaks under me as I shift my weight, trying to get a clearer view. The night is cold, the kind that seeps into your bones, but I don't feel it. All I feel is the hard plastic of my grandfather's binoculars pressed against my face, and the hammering of my own heart. Across the sea of asphalt, under the sickly yellow glow of the 24-hour grocery store lights, it sits. The 2004 Ford Expedition, Montana plates, 8B7342. It's seen better days. Dented fender, passenger side mirror hanging by a wire, Wayne's truck. My hands tighten on the steering wheel until my knuckles bleach white, the old scars standing out like ridges on a map of every fight I've ever lost. I adjust the focus. The world narrows to that backseat window, fogged with sleep and breath. And there she is, Sarah, my daughter. Her head is tilted against the glass, her dark hair, her mother's hair, falling across her face. She's asleep, but even in rest there's a tension in her shoulders I put there. A failure I own. Then I see the small shape curled into her side. Leo, my grandson. Her arm is draped over him, a protective shield even in her dreams. He's just a lump under a blanket, but I know the curve of his cheek, the way his fist clutches the edge of that fabric. I haven't held him in 7 months. Wayne made sure of that. A hot, sudden tear breaks free, tracing a path through the stubble on my cheek. It's a stupid, quiet thing. A 68-year-old man hiding in a truck, crying over something he can see but can't touch. The binoculars tremble in my grip. I watch the slow, steady rise and fall of Sarah's breathing. She looks exhausted. She looks like she's carrying the weight of the world, and I'm just sitting here, watching. Elias is back at the motel, waiting for my call, ready to move. But right now, in this frozen moment, there is no plan. There is only this distance. This terrible, quiet distance across a parking lot that might as well be an ocean. The expedition isn't just a truck. It's a cage. And I'm the one who has to find the key before Wayne decides to drive off into the night again, taking my whole world with him. I never thought I'd have to tell this story. My name is Clint, and this is the day my family broke. I'd come back to the ranch 2 days early from a cattle auction in Billings. The drive was long, and all I wanted was my own bed, and to see my grandson, Leo. I pulled the Expedition, good old Montana plates 8B7342, right up to the garage, thinking something was off. Sarah's car was gone. Wayne's truck was here. I let myself in, the silence feeling heavy. Then I heard it. Laughter, coming from the master bedroom, my bedroom. It wasn't my daughter's laugh. My heart just dropped into my boots. I walked down the hall, my hand on the doorframe, and pushed the door open. There was Wayne, my son-in-law, the man I'd trusted to run this place, in my bed with a woman I'd never seen. Sheets tangled, clothes on my floor, the look on his face. It wasn't even shame. It was annoyance, like I'd interrupted his important business. I didn't say a word. I just turned around, walked into my study, and picked up the phone. I called the only person I knew who could handle this without me doing something I'd regret. My old friend, Elias. He runs private security in the valley. "Elias," I said, my voice strangely calm. "I need you at the house, now. Bring a couple of your guys." 20 minutes later, Elias was there with 2 of his men, all in quiet, professional uniforms. He took one look at my face and knew. "Clint," he said, putting a steady hand on my shoulder. "Let us handle it. Go wait on the porch." I did. I sat in my rocking chair, staring at the mountains, feeling like my chest was hollowed out. I heard the raised voices, then the scuffling. Elias's men were professionals. They came out the front door first, each holding an arm. Between them was a half-dressed Wayne, stumbling, yelling about his rights. Right behind them was the woman, clutching her blouse closed, her face bright red. Elias guided them firmly down the front steps, right onto the gravel driveway in the full light of day. Mrs. Henderson from across the fence was watering her roses. She stopped, hose in hand, her mouth wide open. Old Tom was fetching his mail. He just stared. "You can't do this," Wayne was shouting, struggling against the firm grips. "This is my house, too. Sarah will hear about this." That's when Sarah's car came tearing up the road. She must have gotten a panicked call. She skidded to a stop, Leo in the back seat. She saw Wayne, barefoot and furious in the driveway. She saw me, stone-faced on the porch. She saw the whole neighborhood watching. She didn't even look at me. She ran to Wayne like he was the victim. He started spinning his story immediately, pointing at me, at Elias. I saw her face harden. She believed him. She always did. She helped him into her car, shot me a look of pure betrayal, and drove off with my grandson. That was the last time I saw Leo for a very, very long time. I just sat there, watching the dust from her car settle on the driveway, Elias standing silently beside me. The house behind me felt emptier than the big sky above. The Montana plates were like a beacon in the dusty parking lot. 8B7342. My hands were slick on the steering wheel of my old truck as I watched the 2004 Ford Expedition, the one Elias and I had spent weeks hunting, finally come to a stop outside a run-down laundromat. I killed my engine 2 rows back, my heart doing a hard, painful drum roll against my ribs. This was it. This was the moment. But it wasn't Wayne who climbed out of the driver's side. It was Sarah. The air left my lungs in a rush. She looked diminished. The vibrant woman I'd known was folded in on herself, shoulders slumped under the weight of a bulging laundry bag. Her hair was pulled into a messy bun, and even from this distance I could see the deep shadows under her eyes. She moved slowly, like every step cost her something. I watched, a silent ghost in my cab, as she pushed through the laundromat's glass door. She didn't look around. She just went to a machine in the back, heaved the bag in, and then stood there, staring at nothing. Then she pulled a small coin purse from her pocket. I saw her head dip as she poured the contents into her palm, carefully separating quarters from dimes. She was counting, coin by coin, for a wash. A raw, aching crack split right down the center of my chest. This was what he'd done. This was the life he'd given her after taking everything else. The anger I'd carried for Wayne solidified into something colder, sharper. But it was drowned out by a wave of grief so potent it made my eyes burn. She was right there, 20 yards away. The logic Elias and I had practiced vanished. The plan to observe, to gather intel, evaporated. I was just a man seeing the woman he loved, broken. Before I could even think, my truck door was open and my boots were on the asphalt. I didn't run, but my walk was urgent, pulled toward her by a force I couldn't fight. I was 10 feet from the laundromat window when she looked up. Our eyes met through the glass. For a single suspended second, there was nothing, just the shock of recognition. Then, her entire face changed. It wasn't fear. It wasn't sadness. It was a pure, hardening anger that etched lines around her mouth and turned her gaze to Flint. It was a look that said, You're part of this hell too." She didn't shout. She didn't gesture. She simply turned her back on me. A deliberate, final pivot. She focused on her coins again, her spine rigid, shutting me out of her world as completely as if she'd slammed a door in my face. I stopped dead on the sidewalk, the heat of the day suddenly meaningless. The message was clearer than any words. My presence wasn't a rescue. It was just another wound. I stood there, hollowed out, watching the woman I'd come to save silently tell me I was just another ghost from a past she wanted to burn. The Montana night was so cold, I could see my breath fogging up the windshield of my rental car. I'd been parked across the street from the gravel pull-off for 3 hours, the only light coming from the dim glow of my phone. This was the spot. According to the notes Elias helped me compile, the 2004 Ford Expedition, Montana plates 8B7342, parked here almost every night. My coffee was ice. My nerves were live wires. Every set of headlights that swung down the rural road made my heart hammer against my ribs. Is this it? Is this him? Then, at nearly 1 a.m., the familiar bulky shape of the Expedition rumbled into the pull-off. The headlights died, leaving the SUV a dark silhouette against the pines. This was it. Wayne. He didn't get out right away. A minute passed, then 2. The driver's door finally flew open and Wayne practically fell out onto the gravel. Even from this distance I could see the unsteady, aggressive sway of his body. He was drunk, or close to it. He slammed the door, the sound cracking through the silent night, and stomped around to the passenger side. My knuckles were white on the steering wheel. I leaned forward, my face almost touching the cold glass. He yanked the passenger door open. I saw Sarah's profile, tense and fearful in the dome light. I couldn't hear the words, but I could see the argument. Wayne's gestures were sharp, violent jabs in the air. Sarah shook her head, recoiling. Then he did it. He reached into the car and grabbed her arm. His hand was a vice around her wrist. A small, terrified cry floated from the back seat. Leo. My boy was in there, seeing this. A fire erupted in my chest, pure, instinctual rage. My hand shot from the wheel, fingers curling around the cold metal of my door handle. Every muscle in my body screamed to get out, to cross that road, to put myself between them and him. I started to pull the handle, a centimeter. Then I stopped. I forced my hand away, making a fist in my lap. Elias's warning echoed in my skull, mixing with the memory of Sarah's pleading, angry voice on our last phone call. "You'll just make it worse, Clint. He'll take it out on me after you leave." A direct confrontation now wouldn't save her. It would give Wayne the excuse he wanted. It would make Sarah see me as the instigator, the unstable ex, pushing her further into his corner. She'd shut me out for good. So I sat there. I sat there in the dark, watching another man put his hands on my family. I sat there, listening to my son cry. It was the hardest thing I've ever done, just being a witness. But I knew, with a sick, certain clarity, that charging in wasn't the hero move. It was the mistake that would cost me everything. I had to be smarter. For them. I pulled up to Elias's apartment complex, the engine of my old truck rattling to a stop. My hands were still shaking from the confrontation at the motel. I needed a plan. And more than that, I needed facts. Elias was my only shot. He opened the door before I could knock, his reading glasses perched on his head. "Clint, you look like hell," he said, stepping aside. "Feel like it too. I need your help, Elias. I need to find a thread to pull on Wayne." We sat at his cluttered kitchen table, maps and old case files spread out like a war room. Elias still had friends in places that preferred shadows to sunlight. He made a few calls, his voice a low, steady murmur. Each call was a stone dropped into a dark pond, and we waited for the ripples. The first ripple came back within the hour. A name, Mario, a local bookie. Elias's contact said Wayne was in deep, a regular with a tab that had grown teeth. "Gambling," I muttered, the pieces clicking. The constant moving, the desperation in Sarah's eyes when she talked about money. It wasn't just bad luck, it was a habit draining them dry. "There's more," Elias said, his face grim as he read a text. "The debt's one thing, but he's been using her name, Clint. Payday loans, 3 of them." A cold fury settled in my chest, cleaner and sharper than the anger I'd felt before. Stealing her peace was one thing, stealing her identity, her future was another. "I need proof, Elias. I need the paper." Elias looked at me over his glasses. "Getting the ledger from Mario. It won't be a friendly ask. He protects his clients. It's bad for business if people know he talks." "I don't care. What's the play?" We drove to a worn-out strip mall on the east side. Mario's office was in the back of a laundromat. The air smelled of cheap detergent and mildew. Mario was a thick-set man with careful eyes. Elias did the talking, a calm, quiet negotiation about favors owed and future ones granted. I just stood there, my gaze fixed on Mario, letting him see the desperation in my eyes. This wasn't a business deal for me. This was my sister's life. Finally, after a tense silence that stretched too long, Mario sighed. He pulled a ledger book from a locked drawer, photocopied a page, and slid it across the desk. Then, from a file cabinet, he produced photocopies of 3 loan applications. Sarah's name was signed in a shaky forgery on each one. I took the papers. They felt heavy, toxic. The ledger showed a debt so large it made my stomach turn. The loan applications were a violation I could barely comprehend. Walking back to the truck, the afternoon sun felt harsh and exposing. "This is it," I said to Elias, my voice tight. "This is the why. He's not just a loser. He's a parasite. He's drowning her, and he's using her to try and save himself." I had the proof now, not just a feeling in my gut, but cold, hard evidence on paper. The next move was mine. My heart hammered against my ribs. I was crouched behind a dumpster in the alley across from the motel parking lot, the cold seeping through my jeans. I'd been watching Wayne's expedition, Montana plates 8B7342, for what felt like hours, waiting for my moment. And then it came, but not how I expected. 2 men got out of a sedan that pulled up too fast, tires crunching on gravel. They were big, with that heavy, deliberate way of moving that screamed trouble. They walked straight up to Wayne, who was leaning against the driver's side door, smoking. I saw his posture stiffen. I couldn't hear the words, but I didn't need to. The taller one got right in Wayne's face, jabbing a finger toward the expedition's windows, toward where Sarah and Leo were sitting. My blood went cold. This wasn't just my fight anymore. The second man, bald and thick-necked, gestured violently. This was about money, a debt. The bookie's enforcers come to collect. Wayne tried to shrug, that infuriating, careless lift of his shoulders. The tall man wasn't having it. His hand shot out, a sharp, open-palmed crack that snapped Wayne's head to the side. The sound echoed off the motel walls. And then Sarah screamed. It was a raw, terrified sound from inside the truck, muffled by glass but unmistakable. It was the sound of my sister's world shattering. Leo would be crying now, confused and scared. That scream was the trigger. Everything Elias and I had planned, every cautious step, evaporated. Watching those men threaten my family, watching Wayne let it happen, this was the breaking point. I couldn't just wait for a better opportunity. I had to act, now. But my rage had a new, sharp focus. It wasn't just about stopping Wayne anymore. It was about creating a clean break. Sarah couldn't be tied to him, not by debt, not by fear. If I just charged in swinging, it would be a messy brawl, and she'd still be in the crossfire. I needed this to be the moment Wayne's house of cards collapsed in a way that left Sarah and Leo completely free of him. The enforcers were my unexpected catalyst. I took a deep, steadying breath, my eyes fixed on the scene. My moment was here, but I had to be smarter than I'd ever been, for her. All right, so here's the plan. Elias and I are hunched over a map in my kitchen, the one with all the grease stains from 100 takeout meals. Wayne's picture is staring up at us from the table, that smug grin making my jaw clench. We can't just confront him. He's too slippery, too connected in his own shady way. We have to be smarter. He's greedy, Elias says, tapping the photo. It's his biggest flaw. He always wants the easy score. I nod, the idea already forming. So we give him one, a score so good he can't say no. Elias grins. He's got this way of looking like a friendly accountant, which is perfect. I'll be the bait. I'll reach out, say I got his name from a mutual friend, someone he trusts but who owes me a favor. I'll offer him a transport job. Cash, no questions. The kind of job he thinks he's too smart to pass up. A job for tomorrow night, I add, thinking it through. Somewhere public but isolated. The old industrial park lot off Route 9. It's always empty after 6. Exactly, Elias says. I'll tell him it's sensitive electronics, that he needs to be discreet. I'll stress the payout. $5,000 for 2 hours of driving. It's the perfect alibi. He'll be there, thinking he's making a score, and he'll have his story ready if anyone asks. Now, for the other piece. While Wayne is sitting in that lot, waiting for a fake employer, he needs company. I pick up my phone. I've got to contact Deputy Miller. He helped me out once when my truck got broken into. He's a good guy, straight as an arrow, but he understands the value of a quiet favor. I call him. Miller, it's Clint. Listen, I need a professional courtesy. Nothing illegal. You know that industrial lot on Route 9? The one that's a ghost town? Yeah. I've got a tip. A vehicle. A 2004 Ford Expedition. Montana plates 8B7342. It might be involved in some questionable activities. The guy driving it is slick. Would you be able to run a routine check on vehicles in that lot tomorrow night? Say around 8 p.m., just a standard patrol. See if it's there, run the plates. If it is, maybe have a chat with the driver. See what his story is. Miller is quiet for a second. This a personal thing, Clint? It's a justice thing, I say, and I mean it. I just need him looked at, officially. No drama. All right, he sighs. I can do a pass-through. Routine check. But that's it. That's all I need. Thank you, Miller. I hang up. Elias is looking at me. So, while I'm hiring him, the law is dropping by for a chat. That's the trap, I say. a cold satisfaction settling in my chest. He'll be sitting there, waiting for a criminal payday, and instead he gets a flashlight in his window and a deputy asking why he's loitering. It shakes his tree. It makes him nervous. And a nervous man makes mistakes. We look at each other. The plan is set. Tomorrow night, Wayne walks into our web. All we have to do is wait. My heart was hammering against my ribs as I pulled my truck into the dirt lot behind the old feed store. Right on schedule, Deputy Miller's cruiser was parked at an angle, its lights off. And there it was, just like I knew it would be. The 2004 Ford Expedition with Montana plates 8B7342. It looked smaller somehow, defeated, a metal shell holding my entire world hostage. I took a deep breath. The folder Elias had helped me prepare feeling like a lead weight in my hand. This was it. The trap was sprung, and Wayne was 100 miles away thinking he was clever. I climbed out, forcing my face into a mask of grandfatherly concern. I could see Sarah through the expedition's dusty window, her face pale and etched with fear as she spoke to the deputy. Little Leo was clinging to her leg. The sight of him out here in this lot nearly broke my composure. "Deputy," I called out, walking over. "Everything all right here? Sarah?" "Leo, sweetheart, are you okay?" Sarah's eyes snapped to me wide with a mixture of shock and desperate relief. "Dad? What are you doing here?" "Just passing through, getting parts," I lied smoothly, the story Elias and I had crafted feeling bitter on my tongue. I turned to the deputy. "This is my daughter and grandson. What's going on?" Deputy Miller, a man I'd known for years, tipped his hat. "Found them living in the vehicle, Clint. Protocol says I've got to call it in. Social services are on the way for a wellness check." Sarah flinched as if struck. The word social services hung in the dry air, a terrifying specter. This was her moment of maximum vulnerability, just as we'd planned. "Living in it?" I breathed, letting the horrified grandfather take over. I stepped closer to Sarah, lowering my voice but making sure every word carried to the deputy. "Honey, what's happened? Where's Wayne? He said you were in a nice sublet in Bozeman." He said it fell through," she whispered, tears starting. "He's working a pipeline job. The money's coming," he promised. My stomach churned. This was the hardest part. "Sarah," I said, gentle but firm. I opened the folder. "There is no job. He's in Butte playing cards. Elias saw him." I showed her the grainy photo Elias had texted. Then I laid out the real evidence. "These are the loan papers against the house, my house. And this," I said, pointing to the debt ledger, a list of numbers and threatening names, "is what he really owes. Not a few hundred, thousands, to very dangerous people." Her hands trembled as she took the papers. I kept talking, laying it all bare for the deputy to hear. "He put you and Leo in this car to hide you. Not to protect you, but to hide you from them. You're not safe with him. This car isn't a home, it's a target." She looked from the papers to the rusty expedition, to little Leo, and the last of her defenses crumbled. A sob escaped her. The deputy shifted his weight, his professional detachment softening into something like pity. "He lied?" she choked out. "About everything," I said, my own voice thick. I put a steadying hand on her shoulder. "But you're not alone in this. Not anymore. You're coming home with me. Right now." I looked at Deputy Miller. He gave me a slow, almost imperceptible nod. The official wheels would turn, but the narrative was set. The concerned grandfather had arrived. The villain's lies were exposed, and the rescue, at long last, could begin. The sound of tires on gravel was like a thunderclap. I knew it was him before I even saw the 2004 Ford Expedition with Montana plates 8B7342 come to a violent stop, dust swirling around it like a storm. Wayne threw the door open, his face a mask of pure, unhinged fury. He'd come back to gloat, to finish whatever sick game he thought he was winning. He stormed toward the porch where I stood with Sarah, Leo tucked safely behind me, and Deputy Miller at my side. "What is this? A little family reunion?" Wayne spat, his eyes darting from Sarah to me. "You need to leave, Clint. You're trespassing. Sarah, get inside. Now!" This was the moment. The deputy, a good man named Elias, who'd listened carefully to everything, took a single step forward. He didn't shout. His voice was calm, solid as granite. "Wayne, we need to have a talk about a series of commercial loans taken out in Sarah's name without her knowledge or consent." The color drained from Wayne's face, replaced by a blotchy, furious red. "That's a lie! She signed those, "I never signed anything, Wayne." Sarah's voice was quiet, but it cut through his bluster like a knife. She was looking at him, really looking at him, and I saw the last veil of deception fall from her eyes. It was a painful, awful thing to witness. "You told me they were refinancing papers for the house. You told me it was to help us." "It was to help us!" he screamed. But the desperation was plain now. The performance was crumbling. "It's over, Wayne," Sarah said, and those 3 words held a lifetime of weary finality. Elias moved then, his movements efficient and sure. "Wayne, you're under arrest for fraud. You have the right to remain silent." The words became a drone in the background as the cuffs clicked shut around Wayne's wrists. That sound was sweeter than any music. As Elias led him toward the squad car, Wayne twisted back, his eyes locking on mine. They were pools of venom. "This isn't over, Clint. You hear me? You think you've won? You've ruined everything. I'll get out. I'll come for you." I didn't say a word. I just watched him. All the fear, the anxiety, the miles of desperate driving, it all melted away, leaving a profound, steady silence inside me. His threats were just noise, the last rattles of a defeated snake. I turned away from him, back to my daughter, who was crying softly, not from fear now, but from a release of all the tension she'd been holding. I pulled her into my side, my arm around her shoulders, and felt her lean into me. We stood there on the porch, Sarah just a step away, and watched as the taillights of the deputy's car carried my nightmare away down the dusty road. The only sound left was the wind in the pines, and my daughter's breathing slowly steadying against my chest. We didn't need to speak. For the first time in years, the air was clear. The morning sun warmed my back as I knelt beside Leo in the corral, showing him how to flatten his palm so the old mare, Daisy, could take the apple slice without nipping his fingers. His small hand was steady, his eyes wide with a concentration I hadn't seen in him since before all this started. "Just like that, partner," I said, my voice low. "She trusts you now." From the porch of the guest house, Sarah watched. She held a mug of coffee in both hands, the steam curling in the cool air. There was no tension in her shoulders anymore, no flicker of her eyes toward the driveway. She was just watching her son, a softness in her face that had taken weeks to return. The guest house wasn't forever, but for now, it was their sanctuary. It was close enough that I could see them from my own kitchen window, a silent promise that the distance between us was finally closed. The main house was still too full of old memories for them, Sarah had said. This was better. This was a fresh start on the same land. Wayne was in a cell, awaiting trial. Elias had made sure of that. My old friend had been the one to handle the final statements, the paperwork, all the gritty details that made my head pound. He'd clapped me on the shoulder last week and said, "It's over, Clint. He's not getting out." The system was slow, but it had him. The menace was now just a name in a court docket, a shadow locked away. I'd driven the expedition to a dealership 3 states over the very first Monday after everything settled. I didn't haggle. I just handed over the keys to the Montana-plated 2004 Ford, that metallic beast that had been their rolling prison. I watched as a salesman drove it around back, and I felt a weight lift from the earth itself. It was scrap now, or someone else's problem. For us, it was already fading, just a bad memory getting fainter every day. Leo brushed his hand down Daisy's neck, a smile breaking across his face. I stood up, putting a hand on his shoulder. I looked from him to Sarah on the porch, to the wide green pasture where the new fence line stood straight and strong. The pasture is mended, not the same as before, but strong where it counts.